It's been 57 years since Once Upon a Time in the West galloped onto the screen, forever reshaping the Western genre. With Ennio Morricone's unforgettable score and a cast of legends like Henry Fonda and Charles Bronson in roles no one expected, the film stunned audiences worldwide. But what happened after the cameras stopped rolling is even more surprising. Some soared, others vanished, and a few met truly shocking ends. Let's find out what really happened to them. Henry Fonda as Frank. Henry Fonda was born on May 16, 1905, in Grand Island, Nebraska. When he was 63 years old, he took on the role of Frank in Once Upon a Time in the West, 1968, portraying a ruthless villain with cold eyes and chilling precision, turning the character into one of cinema's most iconic antagonists. Under Sergio Leone's direction, Fonda shattered his heroic image to deliver a haunting performance as a merciless killer. In real life, however, his story was entirely different. He married 5 times, most notably to Margaret Sullivan, Susan Blanchard, and Afdera Franchetti, but each marriage ended in heartbreak, leaving emotional scars and strained relationships with his children, especially Jane Fonda, who was distant from him for decades. These wounds seemed to draw him inward. He found solace in painting and living in solitude, though his heavy smoking took a toll on his health. He died of heart disease on August 12, 1982, in Los Angeles, California, at the age of 77.
Morton once told me I could never be like him.
Charles Bronson as Harmonica. Charles Bronson was born on November 3, 1921, in Ehrenfeld, Pennsylvania. When he was 47 years old, he brought life to the role of Harmonica in Once Upon a Time in the West, 1968. A mysterious man with his harmonica always in hand, carrying deep pain and a fierce thirst for revenge. Bronson's powerful silence, expressed through his eyes and gestures, made harmonica a symbol of quiet resolve. But away from the screen, his life was a tough journey. His first marriage to Harriet Tendler ended early, and though his second marriage to Jill Ireland brought happiness, it ended in tragedy when she passed away from breast cancer in 1990.
You brought too many.
Her loss pushed him into solitude, where he often sought comfort in quiet days fishing by the lake. Still, his peaceful routine couldn't hide the toll his early years in the coal mines had taken.
Now I gotta go.
He died of pneumonia on August 30, 2003, in Los Angeles, California, at the age of 81.
Strange sound.
Right now.
Claudia Cardonali as Jill McBain. Claudia Cardonali was born on April 15, 1938, in Tunis, Tunisia. When she was just 30 years old, she portrayed Jill McBain in Once Upon a Time in the West, 1968. A strong, resilient woman who faced hardship head-on to protect her land and future. Cardonali's captivating beauty and nuanced performance turned Jill into a symbol of determination in Sergio Leone's brutal world. Behind the spotlight, however, her life came with its own set of challenges. She married director Pasquale Squitieri in 1975 and had a daughter, also named Claudia. But the marriage ended, leaving her a single mother facing the pressures of a demanding career that took an emotional toll. Today, she finds peace in quiet days, reading and tending her garden in Italy, a gentle pastime that helps her forget the more turbulent years. As of 2025, at the age of 87, Cardonali lives peacefully surrounded by loved ones.
Mrs. McBain.
But we thought...
Jason Robards as Cheyenne. Jason Robards was born on July 26, 1922, in Chicago, Illinois. When he was 46 years old, he gave life to Cheyenne in Once Upon a Time in the West, 1968, a charming outlaw torn between his criminal past and a desire for redemption. Robards' wit and emotional depth made Cheyenne one of the film's most memorable figures. But when the lights faded, his own life grew darker. He married 4 times, including a high-profile marriage to Lauren Bacall from 1961 to 1969, which ended in a painful divorce. Alcohol became his escape from emotional wounds, though he tried to find comfort in card games and watching baseball.
Sorry, harmonica. I gotta stay here.
Years of heavy smoking took a toll, and he died of lung cancer on December 26, 2000, in Bridgeport, Connecticut, at the age of 78.
He can shoot, too.
Gabrielle Ferzetti as Morton. Gabrielle Ferzetti was born on March 17, 1925, in Rome, Italy. When he was 43 years old, he played Morton in Once Upon a Time in the West, 1968. A frail but fiercely ambitious railroad tycoon, willing to do anything to expand his empire. Ferzetti brought a unique complexity to Morton, blending vulnerability and cruelty to unforgettable effect. But once the cameras stopped rolling, his personal life took a more somber turn. He married twice, first to Angela Fiaro, then to Michaela Patelli, but both relationships fell apart as he withdrew into work and neglected his children, leading to tense family ties.
And finally, the nationalization of all pharmaceutical companies, over 1,000 in number.
In his final years, he found comfort in quiet evenings listening to classical music, but a series of strokes eventually ended his journey.
For a national budget so much in the red.
Ferzetti died on December 2, 2015, in Rome, Italy, at the age of 90. Jack Elum as Snakey. Jack Elum was born on November 13, 1920, in Miami, Arizona. When he was 48 years old, he stepped into the role of Snakey in Once Upon a Time in the West, 1968, a dangerous, unpredictable gunman in Frank's gang, his signature misaligned eye only adding to the character's eerie presence. Elum brought vivid energy to the role, turning Snakey into a standout among supporting characters. But beyond the screen, his life was a winding road. He married twice. The first ended in betrayal, and the second ended tragically with his wife's sudden death, pushing him into depression and alcoholism. Even so, he found moments of joy in collecting antiques, a rare passion amid strained family ties and a reckless lifestyle. Declining health due to strokes and heart disease eventually took its toll, and he passed away on October 20, 2003, in Ashland, Oregon, at the age of 82. Woody Strode as Stoney. Woody Strode was born on July 25, 1914, in Los Angeles, California. When he was 54 years old, he took on the role of Stoney in Once Upon a Time in the West, 1968, a loyal yet commanding henchman in Frank's gang, adding to the film's tense atmosphere. With his powerful build, Strode made Stoney an indispensable part of the story. But off-screen, his life was marked by prolonged sorrow. He married twice. The first ended in betrayal, and the second, though more enduring with Luana, was still stormy, especially after the tragic death of their son in an accident. He often turned to running as a way to escape his grief, but lung cancer ultimately claimed his life. Strode passed away on December 31, 1994, in Glendora, California, at the age of 80. Paulo Stapa as Sam. Paulo Stapa was born on June 6, 1906, in Rome, Italy. When he was 62 years old, he played Sam in Once Upon a Time in the West, 1968, a humble yet memorable wagon driver who brought a touch of warmth to the harsh setting. Stapa's subtle performance gave Sam a small but meaningful presence. Yet when the spotlight faded, his life painted a somber picture. He married twice. The first with Vanna Benini ended bitterly, and the second was shaken by the loss of a child, a blow that nearly broke him.
Perché sei un impiccione, effeminato, come tua madre.
He found some comfort in watching opera, but leukemia gradually drained his strength. Stapa died on May 1st, 1988, in Rome, Italy, at the age of 81. Frank Wolf as Brett McBain. Frank Wolf was born on May 11, 1928, in San Francisco, California. When he was 40 years old, he portrayed Brett McBain in Once Upon a Time in the West, 1968, an ambitious man killed early in the film, setting the stage for the revenge story to unfold. Wolf brought authenticity to this brief role, but when the fame faded, his life spiraled into a bleak tragedy. He married once and had no children, and as the spaghetti western boom declined, so did his career, leaving him isolated and depressed. He once enjoyed photography for relaxation, but even that couldn't pull him from the edge. In the end, in a moment of despair, he took his own life by slitting his wrists on December 12, 1971, in Rome, Italy, at the age of 43. Keenan Wyn as sheriff. Keenan Wyn was born on July 27, 1916, in New York City, New York. When he was 52 years old, he played the sheriff in Once Upon a Time in the West, 1968, a firm character symbolizing order in a lawless world. Wyn brought a natural authority to the role, highlighting the presence of law within the story. But when the cameras stopped rolling, his life was far from steady. He married multiple times, including a painful breakup with Evie Wynn when she left him for Van Johnson, a shock that pushed him toward alcohol and cigarettes. He took comfort in collecting cars, but declining health due to pancreatic cancer brought everything to a halt. Wynn passed away on October 14, 1986, in Los Angeles, California, at the age of 70. Lionel Stander as barman. Lionel Stander was born on January 11, 1908, in the Bronx, New York. When he was 60 years old, he played the barman in Once Upon a Time in the West, 1968, a gruff yet magnetic bartender who added to the vibrant saloon atmosphere. Stander's distinct, gravelly voice made the character stand out. But beyond the screen, his life was a turbulent journey. He married 6 times, all of which ended in failure, and his career suffered interruptions after being blacklisted during the McCarthy era for his political views.
And particularly Robert Wagner and Stephanie Powers.
He often found joy in listening to the radio, but a heavy smoking habit led to the lung cancer that eventually ended his life. Stander died on November 30, 1994, in Los Angeles, California, at the age of 86. Fabio Testy as member of Frank's gang with black hat. Fabio Testy was born on August 2, 1941, in Peschiera del Garda, Italy. When he was 27 years old, he portrayed a member of Frank's gang with a black hat in Once Upon a Time in the West, 1968, a silent but menacing gunslinger who heightened the tension. Though it was a small role, Testy left a mark with his striking appearance. But as the spotlight dimmed, his life became a roller coaster of highs and lows. He had high-profile romances with Ursula Andress and Charlotte Rampling, but his marriage to Lola Navarro ended in a bitter divorce.
Fellini presentato in teatro, La Strada.
Leaving him estranged from his son Fabio Jr. amid legal troubles. These days, he finds comfort in fishing, a quiet hobby that keeps him away from the limelight. As of 2025, at the age of 84, Testy lives peacefully surrounded by loved ones. Simonetta Stefanelli as Maureen McBain. Simonetta Stefanelli was born on November 30, 1954, in Rome, Italy. When she was just 14 years old, she played Maureen McBain in Once Upon a Time in the West, 1968, an innocent young girl in the McBain family who made a lasting impression in the tragic opening scene. Her natural performance added emotional depth to the moment. But as she grew older, life presented its own hardships. She married Michel Placido in 1989 and had 3 children. But the painful end of their marriage, combined with pressure from Hollywood, led her to withdraw and open a boutique, though the business struggled.
Via, di no, dimmi che non è vero.
Che noioso.
She later found solace in painting to ease migraines and depression. As of 2025, at the age of 71, Stefanelli lives happily in Rome. Robert Hosan as member of Frank's gang in flashback. Robert Hosan was born on December 30th, 1927, in Paris, France. When he was 41 years old, he appeared as a member of Frank's gang in a flashback scene in Once Upon a Time in the West, 1968, delivering a brief but powerful performance that helped clarify harmonica's motive for revenge. Hosan brought his signature intensity to the role. But once the stage lights faded, his life unfolded as a string of disappointments. He was married 3 times, Marina Vladi, Caroline Eliashev, and Candice Patou, but none of the relationships endured, and his directing career faltered due to a lack of commercial success.
Non, c'est-à-dire que je ne suis absolument pas où j'en suis, non?
He often turned to screenwriting for release, but growing disillusionment slowly distanced him from everything. Hosan died on December 31st, 2020, in Paris, France, at the age of 93, due to complications from COVID-19. Claudio Mancini, as harmonica's brother. Claudio Mancini was born on April 24th, 1928, in Rome, Italy. When he was 40 years old, he played harmonica's brother in Once Upon a Time in the West, 1968, appearing in a tragic flashback scene where he's hanged, sparking harmonica's journey of revenge. Mancini delivered the necessary emotion for this pivotal moment. But as fame faded, his life became a sorrowful tale. He married twice, first abandoned by his wife, and then a second marriage filled with resentment and divorce, though he reconciled with his daughter Martina before his passing. He often played chess to ease the loneliness, but diabetes and heart disease gradually drained his strength. Mancini died on June 28, 2024, in Rome, Italy, at the age of 96. Renato Pincheroli as first bidder at auction. Renato Pincheroli was born on May 14, 1905, in Milan, Italy. When he was 63 years old, he took on the role of the first bidder at the auction in Once Upon a Time in the West, 1968, a minor character representing ordinary townspeople swept into the brutality of the West. Pincheroli brought authenticity to this modest role. But when the cameras stopped rolling, his life turned into one of quiet isolation. He married late, but his wife passed away early from illness, leaving him childless and burdened by depression and financial hardship. He found fleeting joy in listening to Italian folk music, but the final days remained heavy. Pincheroli died on September 2, 1976, in Milan, Italy, at the age of 71. Conrad San Martin as Vecino. Conrad San Martin was born on February 20th, 1921, in Higuera de las Dueñas, Spain. When he was 47 years old, he played Vecino in Once Upon a Time in the West, 1968, a tough local who added to the gritty realism of the frontier setting. San Martin brought the necessary toughness to the role, but when the lights went out, his life was full of hardship. He married Carmen Lozano, but their relationship was stormy, marked by separations and infidelity, which distanced him from his son, Miguel Angel. He enjoyed hiking to unwind, but arthritis and late-life isolation eventually took their toll. San Martin died on April 24, 2019, in Madrid, Spain, at the age of 98. Their lives took turns no one could have scripted. Some rose to greatness, others faded too soon. But each left a legacy behind. The magic of Once Upon a Time in the West still lives on through them. Which cast member's journey shocked you the most? Drop your thoughts below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more untold Hollywood stories.